The topic which we are going to cover today is the chapter carbon and its compounds. Let us talk about the carbon. Carbon is present everywhere. So, if we say the sugar, we usually take that sugar also contains carbon. That is, the formula is C12H22O11. Right? The wood, which is used to make the furniture, that wood is also made up of carbon. Right? Similarly, the petrol, which we use to run our vehicles as a fuel, that petrol also contains the carbon, and octane is the main constituent of the carbon, having formula C8H18. Right? And the clothes which we wear, the clothes has the main component as carbon. Our body is actually made up of carbon. So now you can understand why it is necessary, why it is very important to study about the carbon and its compounds. And moreover, if you choose for the science stream, then this carbon and compounds chapter is very important, because this is the basic of the organic chemistry. So now, first of all, we will discuss the electronic configuration of carbon. For that, you know the atomic number of carbon. Atomic number of carbon is 6. And you know the symbol of carbon is C. Right? So atomic number of C is 6. Right? Now the electronic configuration. Electronic configuration of carbon. You know, in first shell it will have 2 electrons, and in the second shell the carbon will have 4 electrons. As we know, octet rule, in the L shell there should be 4 electrons. It means the carbon either can gain 4 electrons so that its last shell will be completed, or it can lose 4 electrons so the K shell will be completed. So if it gain, the carbon will gain 4 electrons. It will be C4 negative. And if the carbon will lose 4 electrons, then it will form C4 plus ion. Now, but the size of the carbon atom is very small. At the center is a nucleus. In the first shell there are 2 electrons, and in the second shell there are 4 electrons. And these 4 electrons are very close to the nucleus. Right? If the carbon will gain 4 electrons, then there will be more repulsion between the 4 electrons which it will gain, because of the small size of the 4 electrons. So that's why carbon will not gain 4 electrons. It means carbon cannot make C4 negative ion. Similarly, if the carbon will lose 4 electrons, right? It is also not possible. Why? Because of the small size of the carbon atom, the electrons are tightly bound with the nucleus. So it requires so much energy to remove these electrons from the carbon atom. So it means carbon can neither gain electrons nor lose electrons. But still, as I told you, we find number of carbon compounds. How? It means the carbon cannot form ionic compounds, but the carbon can form covalent compounds. How the covalent compounds are formed? So as we know, the electronic configuration of carbon is 2, 4. So it means it requires 4 electrons to complete its last shell. So I give you example of methane. The formula of that is CH4. Right? Now we know the electronic configuration of carbon is 2 and 4, and the electronic configuration of H is, because atomic number of H is 1, so it has only 1 electron in K shell. Right? It means hydrogen requires 1 more electron to complete its K shell. Now what will happen? The electron dot structure. What is the electron dot structure? In electron dot structure, we represents the electrons of the valence shell of the element in the form of dots. So this is the electron dot structure of carbon. We have discussed electron dot structure in previous chapters, right? And if we draw the electron dot structure of hydrogen, it will be S dot. So just to differentiate, we can use cross, right? So here we can write like this. Okay. So now what we will observe, that carbon will, as we have discussed, carbon can neither gain electron nor lose electron. So carbon will share the electrons with the other atoms of the elements, or with the atoms of the same carbon. So here the sharing will be done. It means like this. Now you can calculate 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There are 8 electrons in the around the carbon, that is in the L shell. Similarly, the in the hydrogen, also in the K shell, there are 2 electrons, and what do we observe? That carbon and hydrogen are actually sharing their electrons. So the bond which is formed by the sharing of electrons, that is called covalent bond. It means carbon form a number of compounds, a number of covalent compounds by sharing of electrons. Now next, we will discuss how can we get a number of carbon compounds in our surroundings? So now we will discuss a property, that is catenation. What is catenation? So to understand the catenation, we will discuss example of octane. The formula is C8H18. We will discuss later how we get the formula C8H18 of octane. Okay, so C8H18 means there are 8 carbons. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Right? There are 8 carbon atoms and there are 18 hydrogen atoms. Okay, so carbon forms 4 bonds because it has 4 electrons in its valence shell. So actually it is a tetravalent. So it forms 4 bonds. If you will observe that each carbon atom is forming 4 bonds here in the octane as well. 4 covalent bonds. Right? So carbon has the property to make a long chain of carbons. That is, this property is called catenation. Now, why this catenation property is shown by carbon? I tell you the reason. Again, suppose there are 2 carbon, right? So here, okay. So these are the shared pair of electrons, right? This is the electron cloud. Okay. So this electron cloud is bounded with the nucleus of both the carbons which are participating to form covalent bond. Why? Because the size of the carbon atom is very small, right? So due to which means due to the small size of the carbon atom, the shared pair of electrons, the electron cloud which participates to form the covalent bond are actually tightly bound by the nucleus of 2 carbon atoms. That's why carbon shows the property of catenation to a large extent, and that's why we get a number of carbon compounds in our surroundings. And as I told you, we find carbon compounds everywhere.